Okay, we are live now. Before we begin this webinar, I'll just hold first as we wait for more participants to come in. We currently have about 22 of us on the call, and then we'll kickstart in just a 1 minute's time. Yeah. Okay, it's 3:01 on my clock, so let's begin the webinar. Hi everyone, this is Hannah, and I'm from the Lloyd's Asia Market Development Team based in Singapore. So welcome to the second episode of our Academy's educational program for September. And before we begin, as usual, I'll just share a quick disclaimer that the views expressed here by our speakers today are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Lloyd's Corporation as well as our service companies. This series is intended for educational as well as informational purposes only, and nothing shared here constitutes as a formal piece of advice or is an official Lloyd's position. And also, as usual with our other webinars, each session will qualify for one continuing professional development hour. And in order to receive this, stay with us until the end and complete the feedback form that I will share a link later. And also, please use the chat function and engage with our speakers to ask a lot of questions throughout this webinar. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our session today. It is titled Agentic AI in Action, Transforming Cyber Risk and Beyond, with our speakers Joel and Simeon from Protos Labs. Just to share, Protos Labs is our alumni from Cohort 11 of our Lloyd's Lab Accelerator program, and they are also recognized by Singapore Cybersecurity Agency. So now I'll pass on the time to Joel and Simeon for their introductions and so that they can kick off the sharing today. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Hannah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. We are based in Singapore. It's 3 p.m. I suppose for most of you guys, you should be in a similar time zone. A real pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to be a part of this educational program of the Lloyd's Academy. So just going to do a couple of quick introductions to what we'll be covering today as part of the webinar. So as mentioned, the webinar is very much focused on agentic AI and the use of technology in the world of cyber risk and also in other classes of risk, right? And you might have heard a lot about what LLMs are and what agents are and all that. And today we'll attempt to sort of show you some actual use cases of how companies have been using agentic AI technologies specifically to help them optimize operations, lower costs, and so on and so forth. So there are 6 key areas of the presentation that will be done today in the webinar. So first, there will be some level of fundamentals that we'll cover. So we'll talk a bit about cyber risk just to set the context, what's so unique about it compared to other classes of risk. Secondly, we'll then move on to talk about insurance as a service, or what some people call IaaS, and really just helping us to understand what are end customers, the actual corporates who actually buy cyber insurance, what are they actually expecting from a cyber policy. So this is where we bring our other side of the perspective, where we sit at the end user and where we sell into the CISO's office and bring this all out that perspective. The third thing that we'll cover is talking about how then do we achieve insurance as a service at scale, right? And how is data then as a common denominator, and we'll share more about that. Fourthly, we'll talk a bit about what is agentic AI, and talking about the difference between LLMs like ChatGPT versus AI agents versus agentic AI, and really trying to give a bit of 101 to demystify that. Fifthly, we'll talk about how does agentic AI help in this data problem that we will soon begin to see in the world of cyber insurance. We'll introduce also our solution called Protos AI and the AI agents that are within the platform that we have, and how it can help. We walk through some real-world use cases. We also do a bit of brainstorming, vision casting of the possibilities of agentic AI in cyber and beyond. And we also cover a success case study that we've ran for a client. And then lastly, which is probably the most interesting portion, so I'll hand the time over to Simeon, who will then do a live demo of the AI agent for certain specific use cases around underwriting, around supply chain intelligence. As we know, supply chain attacks that just happened in Europe with the airports and all of that. And then sort of trying to help you to see how it can be real and operationalized in your environment. Okay, so with that, I think I will officially start the presentation just to get the ball rolling, right? So introducing the company, so who is Protos Labs and who we are? So currently, as Hannah mentioned, we are an alumni of the Lloyd of London Lab. Specifically, we are a Singapore-based cyber AI company, very much focused in the areas of cyber threat and risk management, right? So there's the space of helping companies to be able to proactively get ahead of cyber threats, and also then to be able to help them to mitigate their risks. The company is founded by myself and Simeon. So both of us used to come from a US defense contractor. You might be familiar, called Booz Allen Hamilton. And that's where we, got our hands dirty into cyber, into AI, selling into the FSI sector, banking and insurance, and so on. So specifically, Protos Lab sits at the intersection of cybersecurity, AI, and also insurance, with a very much focus on the Asia Pacific region. But of course, we have since also expanded to other Western hemispheres. Protos Labs is our technology arm. So specifically, we are a software company. We sell AI-powered cyber solutions, and our customers are usually enterprises that are quite large. We're not a B2C company, neither are we a B2B or SME company. We typically sell to quite big, enterprises, whether it be Fortune 500, whether it be government agencies in Singapore, defense and intelligence, and so on and so forth. As Hannah mentioned, we are accoladed by CSA. Those of you who are based in Singapore would know that CSA is a lighthouse regulator over here in Asia. There's quite a number of other cyber regulators in the region look up to them. So we are accoladed by them, and also alumni of the Lloyd of London Lab. I believe we are one of the first few Asian companies ever to be admitted into the Lloyd of London Lab. That was in 2023, where we spent a year in London understanding the insurance market, the underwriting floor in London, and so on and so forth. Today, we have presence in Singapore, Australia, and also Hong Kong. Most materially, we do business in Singapore and Australia. So on the right side of the screen, you see our names there. We are also certified insurance professionals ourselves. So we are certified agents that can sell insurance if there's a need to, though we don't, we sell software. And also advisors that span both the insurance sector and also ex-CISOs or current CISOs. Some awards and achievements. So we've won multiple global and regional insurance and cybersecurity awards, just to level set the fact that we have some level of expertise in these both domains, which is kind of rare for, I would say, in the company in Asia Pacific region. Now let's talk about fundamentals of cyber risk. What makes cyber risk unique as opposed to other classes of risk? So really, as we took a step back, we asked ourselves also, what holds true about cyber risk after all these years, right? So there are 4 key areas that I think is very true about cyber risk. The first is that cyber risk is a risk that is constantly evolving, right? The risk is evolving because the threats are evolving, right? So threats materialize in risk, right? And you can see this in the news every day. There's some kind of new variant of ransomware. There's some kind of business email compromise attack. There's some phishing attack. There's some supply chain attack. So on a day-to-day basis, you do see new cyber threats coming up in both in scale and sophistication. And this then naturally drives different risks that both end customers, meaning the corporates that actually buy cyber insurance, and you as an insurer or broker needs to be able to adapt accordingly. The second is that accurate assessment of this risk also requires multiple data points, right? So in order to accurately evaluate cyber risk, you need to be able to assess a wide range of factors, right? Anywhere from threats, controls, assets, vulnerabilities. These are some terms that get thrown to you the moment you step into the world of cyber insurance, right? And some of these data also can reside in different places, right? For example, some of it could reside in a compliance document, some of it could reside in some paper-based form, some of it could reside in an ISO 27001 report, some of it could be a technical scan or could reside in logs, right? So again, evaluating multiple different formats of data, and also in multiple different places where you can need to be able to consume that data. The third is cyber risk is also complex and technical, right? So this is something that all of us experience, right? Cyber is built upon an IT foundation, and whether you're an underwriter, you're a broker, or even you're an end customer, in order for you to be able to piece some of this information together to connect the dots, to do your work, basically, you need to be able to have some level of technical expertise. It's probably quite difficult to say that you can not be technical and still function within the cybersecurity domain effectively. Maybe to a small degree, but as you get deeper into it, you probably need some level of technical expertise in the repertoire of skills that you have. Fourthly, there's a high cost of hiring an in-house cyber team, right? So beyond the very large organizations, actually hiring dedicated cybersecurity expertise can be expensive, right? So whether it be hiring a cyber risk engineer to support your underwriting team, or hiring someone to support your claims teams, or even distribution, right? So that is something that we've noticed and probably is true, not just the high cost, but also the scarcity of the talent, right? I think World Economic Forum says that there's something like 4 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs globally, right? So more so now that there's this cyber insurance that's coming up, and there's a need for that, also not just in the back office, in the CISO's function, but also in the front office. And this high cost of hiring is actually the same for your end customers. In the corporates who also want to buy cyber insurance, they are also looking for the same pool of talent to be able to augment their IT teams to protect their organization. So really, the cost is, is set to go up because it's just a demand and supply thing, right? So as the supply drops, demand increases, most likely the cost of hiring an in-house cyber team is going to go up. Now, so then this gives rise to the shift towards insurance as a service, right? So there are 4 key trends that we see globally. So firstly, I think there are a lot of cyber insurtechs in the US and also large specialty players that have been redefining how cyber insurance coverage is delivered, right? So once upon a time, what people thought of as static policy sales, meaning to say it's just a cyber insurance policy or just buying an insurance policy, is now giving way to what we call bundled continuous platform-driven services, right? What we deem as insurance as a service or IaaS model, right? The goal of IaaS then is to deliver ongoing value beyond the policy, right? So it's not just about buying a policy, it's buying a policy together with some other value-added services to be able to protect the organization or give them some level of visibility and so on and so forth, right? So the real value lies in that ongoing value of real-time support, risk visibility, and potentially some level of integrated tools. Right. So that's where the cyber insurance industry has been moving towards, right? You see that with companies offering free risk scanning tools, offering free password protection managers, and so on and so forth. And if you're a traditional player that's looking just to sell the insurance policy and be done with it, you risk you risk being left behind, right? If you don't adapt to how the market has been shifting and how these some insurtechs and how these other specialty players have been moving. Now, so let's talk a bit about what is insurance as a service, right? So what does this entail? How do you then do it? Now, insurance as a service, in a nutshell, combines insurance policies with either pre-bind or post-bind value-added services. Some of these services can include embedded cybersecurity tools. It can include different ways of ingesting data. Let's say if you're sitting on the supply side of the house, right? For example, real-time data ingestion for underwriting. It could include things like early warning alerts for post-bind, recovery, and claim support. But basically, the long and short of it is whatever that you choose to combine as value-added services, the point is that insurance as a service means that companies, when they buy cyber insurance, they're looking almost to buy a cyber resilience subscription. Less so just buying an insurance policy. They're looking for a holistic thing that, insurance comes with the risk transference, and there are other value-added tools or services that the insurer can give me to protect myself, to reduce my risk, to avoid loss, or so on and so forth, right? So on the right side of the screen, what you see is a maturity evolution. This is our point of view, just based off our industry experience, right? So how is cyber IaaS going to evolve, right? So what we see today is, start from the bottom, right? So that's where day 0, day 1, day 2, day 3 going up the curve, right? At day 1, most of the time, a carrier, when they think about cyber insurance, they will probably just think about using prop forms, right? So just use the proposal form, fill in the controls, and so on and so forth. In day 1, which is where the first bound is and where most of the industry is right now, is where we augment paper-based forms with some level of outside-in risk scans, right? So you will see the likes of security scorecard, BitSight, some of these other commercial tools like Shoulder and FOFA, which may be a bit lesser known. These are often bundled as part of the underwriting process, the risk scans, and then the reports are used as a way to get a sense of the end customer's risk profile. Where we think it will evolve is in day 2 and day 3, right? So in day 2 is where you don't just see what's in front of the firewall from an external attack surface point of view, but this is where you go behind the firewall to obtain some level of inside-out data. Of course, the way they obtain the data is debatable, but that's not the context of the conversation. The conversation is more around how then do you get as accurate and as robust data as possible in order to make an accurate risk assessment. So these can include things like vulnerabilities that exist behind the firewall, cloud misconfigurations, and so on and so forth. And the last bound, which we do see some insurtechs that talk about continuous underwriting and things like that. This is where we then believe that continuous threat and risk management means you must be able to continuously assess a company's risk profile against real-world bad actors, right? Because as we mentioned, the risk is constantly evolving. Even if you're secure today, it doesn't mean you're secure tomorrow, right? So how then do you keep abreast of what the bad guys are doing vis-a-vis who your potential customers or policyholders might be in order to deliver insurance as a service? Now, we want to talk a bit about this, right? So when we talk about IaaS, right, what are customers actually looking for? And where then can our ecosystem in the cyber insurance ecosystem add value at the pre-bind and post-bind stage, right? So this is based off actual people that we've spoken to before. both on the buyer side of the house and the end customers, and also in the seller side of the house, right? Especially in carriers, in brokers, and so on and so forth, right? So I split it across the pre-buying and the post-buying stages, and this really is to give you a lens of what the customers are looking for, because ultimately you're still trying to sell to a customer, right? And if you don't understand what they are looking for, it's going to be very hard to be able to meet that expectation. So the first, at the pre-buying stage, right, we hear customers talking about clarity of coverage. So they want to understand in plain language what is and isn't covered, right? So cyber insurance policies can be very technical. It can be, it is a legal contract basically, right? But in a simple way, what can be covered, what cannot be covered, what can be claimed, what cannot be claimed, right? Second, I think we do hear customers talking about, especially some level of underwriting support. This is obviously if you're on the supply side of the house, right? So can there be technical reports that can highlight a potential customer's cyber posture and help to justify some level of coverage, right? So nowadays you do see underwriters doing that, right? So they say, I'll do a risk scan with you using Bedside, whatever. And then I'll give that report to you and then tell you, that actually you're not as secure as you think you should be. Sometimes even brokers do that. The third is an advisory role, right? So what customers are looking for is they're looking for guidance, right, from the insurance ecosystem to be able to make sense of complex cyber threats and align the insurance with business risk, right? So at the end of the day, they don't want to overbuy, they don't want to underbuy, they want to be able to buy something that's commensurate with the risk that their business face. The fourth is at the pre-buying stage still. Customers do occasionally mention about the ease of purchase, right? So if there can be faster quote and buying processes without requiring deep expertise or without requiring the need to fill in a very lengthy form, even just to get a quotation, for example, right? The fifth is trust and credibility. I think especially as we speak to CISOs, when we sell into the enterprise, we hear that CISOs often say that the insurer, the broker, is not really able to carry that conversation with them too well to show that they understand cyber risk, right? It's almost like the CISO has put in so much effort and to secure the environment, but when they explain that, it's not always the case that we on this side of the house in the insurance ecosystem understand what they're actually talking about. Now, at the post-buying stage, what are some feedback that we've heard so far? So ongoing engagement. So I think we have customers saying that, actually they don't appreciate the fact that there's silence all the way from point of purchase all the way to renewal. It will be good if they can expect some level of periodic updates or touch points. And this does not necessarily mean technical updates or alerts or whatever. It could just mean just, checking in and things like that. Early warning alerts. So this is where the technical alerts maybe then come in. So I think there are customers, especially the slightly smaller ones, that say that if there's someone can give me proactive notifications about, let's say, a new vulnerability that's in the wild that I need to patch, or some level of exposure, not just generic guidance, but really guidance that is specific to them, it's contextualized to their organization. That is something that they appreciate. Number 3 is realistic and actionable guidance. So again, clear prioritized steps to be able to mitigate and reduce risk, avoid the loss. Sometimes even the advice people appreciate even without requiring a cybersecurity team. So there's some things that actually organizations can do without saying, hey, you have to spend $100,000 to buy this tool. Are there other things that they can do to then mitigate risk? Maybe put in a process control, put in an administrative control, and so on and so forth. The fourth is claims readiness. So I think at the post-buying stage, we do hear customers saying, if an incident happens, of course, I can be on a retainer. I have my own incident response playbooks, but how do I involve the insurer and what do I do where as far as insurance is concerned, right? Do I need to call a helpline such that my insurance doesn't get negated? But, I try to put them, get them involved in the process as early as possible so that eventually I can make the claim. And last is cost justification. So being able to see that the policy that they buy delivers ongoing benefits, not just financial reimbursement. Sometimes the reimbursement never happens, and that's great because they don't get breached. But are there other benefits, right? So very similar to other types of insurances, where let's say, I subscribe to a health insurance or medical insurance, right? Then they give me some gym memberships, and some Fitbit to wear my hands to track my movements, that kind of thing, right? Ongoing benefits beyond just the actual if something happens. So all of this is great, right? So as we talk about insurance as a service, IaaS at scale, I think that's great, right? But really how to achieve this, in our point of view, the actual problem is around managing complex and dynamic data. So if you think about all the things that I just mentioned, actually in order to do that, one needs mostly quite a bit of data in order to be able to achieve some of them. Now, there is a data challenge, right? So be it for better underwriting or post-buying loss prevention, Our point of view is that effective cyber risk management requires one to be able to collect and analyze quite a bit of data sets. So on the right side of the screen, what you see is one of the patented approaches that we have with regard to cyber risk modeling, right? So this conversation is not around modeling. We're not a modeling company, but basically it's just to give you a sense of, if you take a step back and ask yourself what constitutes cyber risk, you need to be able to have visibility into at least 5 of these components. So the first one is real-world cyber threats, right? What are attackers actually doing? The second is vulnerabilities, right? So what are they actually exploiting to be able to get into the organization? What are the weaknesses that they're actively using to get into the organization? The third is really understanding the assets and systems that lie in your organization if you're an end customer, right? So what are some assets and systems that might be of interest to an attacker because of the data it holds, because of the business criticality, and so on and so forth. Fourthly, the controls that you have in place as well, the security controls to mitigate that risk. And lastly, some level of historical financial loss. So really, if you take a step back and ask yourself, what constitutes a cyber risk event? Actually, all 5 of these would be something that will need to be that you need to have visibility of, right, in order to accurately understand a cyber risk event. The challenge of this is fourfold, right? So the first is that most of these data sets are constantly changing, right? So if you talk about real-world cyber threats, vulnerabilities, these are things that change on a daily basis. There's new attackers that come up every day. There's new malware variants that get released every day. How do you keep abreast of something like that, right? The second is that most of this data is also quite technical. From real-world cyber threats, you talk about things like MITRE. You can model that. You can, break it down into tactics, techniques, procedures. You talk about vulnerabilities. There's CVSS. There's CVEs. You talk about assets and systems. There's BIA ratings and so on and so forth. So most of these are quite technical types of data that, unless you have the expertise, you may or may not be able to. Even if you go obtain that data, you may not be able to understand that kind of data. The third challenge is that most of this data is also in multiple different formats. So I kind of touched upon this briefly, that some of these data could be machine readable data. They could exist in logs. They could exist in some security sensor somewhere. Some of it could also be paper-based data, right? So they could exist in some level of a playbook or process control or compliance, sort of like certification that you might have, and so on and so forth. And lastly, most of this data actually exists in silos. It would be great in an ideal world if to be able to go to a single place to get all of this data, right? But the truth is, in an enterprise environment, which is your end customer's environment, most of this data rests in some shape and some form in different places, right? It could rest in a SharePoint repository. It could rest in some security sensors management console. It could rest in some other place, right? And how then do you stitch and obtain all these different data from different places and make sense of this? So in the insurance sector, we attempt to capture this dynamism, as I call it, in different static containers, right? So we attempt to say, in order to do this, we should have asked more questions in the prop form, or maybe give me your penetration test, the last exercise that you did, show me the results that Accenture gave to you or Big Four did for you. That's okay, but that only is one side of the coin, because again, that it doesn't capture the dynamism. It captures a point in time reference to some of these data sets that should be taken in on a real-time basis. Now, just understanding a bit about cyber risk, we then talk a bit about what's agentic AI and how then can it potentially help in demystifying this whole world of cyber risk and also cyber insurance. Now, so just to help you understand what's agentic AI, so agentic AI is an evolution in AI capabilities. Most of us here are familiar with ChatGPT, which is a large language model. And what's the difference between LLMs and agentic AI, right? So let's go one by one, right? So firstly, the core technology of LLM is an LLM, right? Whereas agentic AI builds upon LLMs with some level of inbuilt memory, tools, and also planning logic. So it's meant to mimic a bit like a human being, right? So it's not just a chat function, but it's meant to be able to have certain memory to remember certain steps, certain planning logic to reason certain things, and autonomously then achieve certain outcomes. In terms of interaction style, LLM typically are user prompt driven, right? So it's a bit more reactive, whereas in terms of AI agents, they can be more goal oriented. So you might still issue a prompt to it, but the prompt is a larger kind of goal, and it can be scheduled to be autonomous, right? So every day at 8 a.m., tell me all the attacks they're targeting the companies in my portfolio, for example, right? So that's something that can be done. LLMs cannot interact with tools. whereas AI agents can, right? So meaning to say, if let's say you are using the AI agent for example, underwriting, right? You want it to be able to read your underwriting guidelines or to be able to interact with your quote and buying systems or some pricing table that you have. Yes, AI agents will be able to do that either through API integration or some level of model context protocol, MCP, right? So essentially what it means is that the AI agent is like a human being. It can use its tools to achieve its goal, right? A bit like weapons it can take to fight a war. Whereas LLMs can't. It's basically more chat-based function. AI agents are also meant to be more autonomous. Autonomous here means independent. So you don't need to keep issuing them prompts. You can just issue them a broad goal. You can set them at a certain level of regularity in terms of scheduled behavior, and they can align to your enterprise workflows and so on and so forth. So some example use cases that LLMs can do. So LLMs are good at answering questions, summarizing text, and so on and so forth. Most of us will use ChatGPT. So one example in cyber is that an LLM can explain what ransomware is, right? It's pretty good at doing that. If you just ask ChatGPT what's ransomware, it can explain to you. AI agents, on the other hand, are better at running repetitive tasks. So things like analyzing data, assessing vulnerabilities, hunting threats, right? So an example in cyber could be that LLM is not, an AI agent, I wrote it wrongly there. Is not about checking, it's not about explaining what ransomware is. What you can do is you can check live sort of data feeds. This CTI stands for cyber threat intelligence feeds. It can extract current ransomware indicators of compromise on this technical data. It can push detection rules into some of your security sensors and so on and so forth. So it's a lot more autonomous. And it can take certain actions automatically, right? So in short, an LLM is basically like a smart assistant. It's very good at giving you great answers, but it waits for your instructions. Whereas an AI agent is a bit like a junior team member. Think of it like a fresh grad, a person with 3-5 years experience. You give them a goal, they'll figure out the steps, they will take action autonomously, and then they will then report back to you. In this case, the only difference is virtual instead of a human fresh graduate. Now, how then do we apply agentic AI to the data challenge that we talked about, right? So we talked about a whole host of like data that we need to collect in order to accurately assess cyber risk, to add value to customers at pre-buy and post-buy, right? So let's talk a bit about the solution first. So the flagship solution that we have within the company is Prodos AI. Again, we may not be the only AI agent company. There are multiple ones, but as far as insurance, I think we are the first cyber insurance AI agent there. So Prodos AI is a specialized AI agent for cyber intelligence work in general, right? So what does intelligence work means? It means that any form of big data, right, or any form of risk where you see data is constantly in big data sets is constantly moving, is constantly changing. These are where the AI agents actually excel in, right? So that could be fraud intelligence, it could be risk intelligence, it could be document intelligence. In this case, we started with cyber. So in the context is cyber. So some examples of cyber intelligence would be cyber insurance underwriting, threat hunting, incident analysis, and so on and so forth, right? In the context of cyber insurance, the AI agent will then play a certain role. Remember I said it was supposed to be like a human, analyst, right? So in this case, the AI agent will then function as a junior cyber underwriter or a junior cyber risk engineer, right? So if you think about these two roles, what are the responsibilities of these types of roles? That's what the AI agent will eventually be playing. And later we'll do a live demonstration of that. And the dynamic data points that we alluded to in the previous deck, whether it be cyber threats, vulnerabilities, asset systems, controls, historical financial loss, all of these dynamic data can be collected and assessed autonomously by the AI agent, right? So we talked about how it's not possible to be able to keep abreast of all these things using a human alone approach, right? You definitely need some level of tool and all of that. And today we are happy to say that Prodos AI as an AI agent will be able to collect and assess all of these data sets automatically. Outside of cyber, we've also done some level of testing. And the AI agent is able to, again, collect any form of constantly moving, changing data, big data sets. It's able to do that. Other types of risk classes. We've tested that even with KYC, compliance use cases, property insurance, and so on and so forth. It's just that we started with cyber, and today's context obviously is around cyber. Now, who can use Prodos AI? Just to give you a sense of at least the AI agent platform that we have. So there are 3 groups of people that can use Prodos AI. One is if you're a carrier, you're an insurer. If you're an insurer, you will use Prodos AI to the AI agent as a cyber underwriter or a risk engineer, as I mentioned just now, mainly to support your underwritings or maybe let's say your claims, right? If you're a broker, you'll probably use the AI agent to be like a risk advisor or consultant to you, right? So for example, you need to advise your clients on some very technical things, or maybe they read off in the news, this widespread ransomware or some vulnerability. How then do you advise them what to do, right? So that's where then you can ask the AI agent to be able to do certain things for you, like every Monday morning, read the news for me and tell me which are the top 5 attacks happening in Southeast Asia that's targeting this portfolio of clients, and then upload an Excel spreadsheet. The third, of course, is the insured themselves. So the end customers can also obviously use the AI agent. We're not talking about that too much today, but as I mentioned, we do also sell into the CISO's office for a couple of large enterprises. So the benefits here of using Prodos AI is really being able to boost certain efficiencies, right? Especially in the case of underwriting, we can help you to also reduce exposure through more accurate data-driven risk assessments. Obviously, for you to cut payroll costs, right? So now you can scale your cyber book without the need for a very large in-house cyber team, right? Once upon a time, in order to do cyber insurance, you need to probably relocate somebody from London, right? As a cyber underwriter, and then hire a team of underwriting assistants and all of that. Today, with AI agents, actually a lot of the grunt work, level 1 work, a lot of the data wrangling work, all can be actually outsourced to the AI agent. Such that you leave your human experts to focus on what truly matters. So just going to walk you through one specific use case around underwriting and risk assessment. And later we'll show you a live demonstration of this as well, right? So in this use case, this is quite a common one, right? So what is underwriting and risk assessment? I think most of you are very familiar. You are reviewing a new cyber insurance policy against your underwriting guidelines, right? And you basically want to be able to have a structured risk assessment before making an underwriting decision. So some data that you might have received could include like the completed proposal form. They may have also uploaded some security evidence like an ISO 27001 report, a penetration test report. And they may also have told you their domain name, for example, right, in case you do want to scan them, right? So you then want Prodos AI to be able to assist in screening, summarizing, and drafting some level of a risk write-up. So why does this matter? Because a couple of things. So firstly, underwriting cyber insurance isn't just around checking boxes on the form, right? And for the matter, underwriting any class of risk, right? What you are hoping to do is to be able to make a fast but well-informed decision on a complex risk, right? If the risk is simple, then obviously the data that you obtain then is a lot more straightforward, right? But in the case of cyber, actually, it's quite a complex risk, right? And also quite a dynamic one. And sometimes the data that exists to help you to make that risk decision could exist in different places like proposal forms, penetration test reports, and all that. So all of these different places, all of these different data contain critical signals that can help you to make a decision. But if you were to manually piece them together, it can be very slow, inconsistent, and also prone to some level of oversight. Now, so let's talk about the process in which this is typically done by an underwriter, right? So we're getting into really details right now. So quite a multi-step process, about a 7-step process. The first is typically what underwriters do is they will first build a business profile. So what they'll do is based off the prop form, they'll review the client's website, any public sources, they will summarize, let's say what industry they are, where's their geographies, what exposure do they have US, Canada exposure, are they in fintech, are they in crypto, which is all excluded, right? And then if there are any prohibited risks, they will then flag, right? If they're not, then okay, you can proceed on, right? The second step that usually happens from the underwriting perspective is based on the prop form, they will then identify controls that are in place, right? So whether it be the firewall, multi-factor authentication, the backups, just based on the prop form. They will also note down certain exposures and prior incidents. I think as you look at cyber insurance proposal forms, you will notice there's always one about cyber incident history. The third step is they will then perform an external attack surface scan, right? So this is where they run checks on those tools that I talked about, whether it be a bit site, security scorecard. Sometimes you can use other commercial tools, Shodan and FOFA, which are probably lesser used. The key here in the EASM scan is to be able to identify exposed services, any misconfigurations or critical issues, right? Fourth step then is to review those security artifacts, right? So usually in the prop forms, they will say, have you done the penetration test before in the last 12 months? Yes. Okay, can you please show it to me, right? The pen test report, right? So again, the pen test report is in the PDF format, right? So one requires expertise to be able to read it, make sense of it, and consume it. So that's the reviewing of security artifacts, right? So reviewing the pen test report, any vulnerability assessment report, and then validating that against any, basically this is evidence of what you declare in the form, right? The fifth step is really checking for gaps, right? So, and this is one of the key goals of this whole process, right? To be able to say all the stuff that you say in the proposal form versus all the technical, actual scans I've done on you versus the evidence you uploaded, does it corroborate? or are there discrepancies, right? For example, you might say that I have MFA, right? But then if you were to export, let's say your MFA console or configuration, actually it shows that it's disabled. Then obviously there's discrepancy, which means that from an underwriting perspective, you may want to clarify with follow-up questions to the customer, right? 6, you will then map your underwriting guidelines or the findings to the underwriting guidelines, right? So very common in underwriting guidelines, you have things like hazard levels, risk quality, the terms and conditions, and then you assign some level of preliminary risk categorization. And then lastly, you will draft an underwriting summary. So this is like the final output report, right? To be able to help you to make a decision, whether it be green, yellow, red. You will highlight the risk strengths and gaps. You will highlight any inconsistencies. It will also potentially highlight some follow-up questions that you may want to check with the end customer, and a recommendation. Do we write this risk? Do we decline this risk? Or do we clarify this risk? And then some level of pricing consideration. So this is notional, but more or less, this is the process that you go through as a cyber underwriter. We went into quite a lot of details just based off our experience running this with clients. And below at the bottom of the screen, what I've done is I've showed 2 swim lanes, right? So the first swim lane there with the human stickman basically tells you that if you were to do this manually, even with some of the tools like scanning tools and all that, those actually don't help you in that process too much. But basically, to run this process manually, you take something like 8 hours, right, at every step of the way, right? So to build business profile, 30 minutes, to extract key details, another 45. It's really quite fast, I would say. Yeah. But just to run this end to end, you take something like 8 hours. We've heard customers take as long as 72, 96 hours to run things like this. Whereas at the bottommost swim lane is where the AI agents then come in, right, in purple, right? So using the AI agents, this whole process can be half an hour. Yeah, so significantly faster, which means that if you're having to do a lot of these, you can now process a lot more skill. That's one. The second, it could also mean that if you may not need to hire so many people, right, to be able to do some of these work, right? You may only just need a good senior analyst or senior underwriter or someone who's strong to be able to make the decisions, review the outputs in step 7, and then make a decision, right? As opposed to doing all the data wrangling or the grunt work and so on and so forth. So you can see that the benefits of the AI agent are quite pronounced. And later, as we run the demo, you can see that it probably even takes faster than half an hour. It could take as fast as 10 minutes to be able to do something like this. So it really then opens up, the way that we can then scale expertise without having to scale headcount. Now let's do a bit of vision casting as dreaming, right? So what is the art of the possible, right? Something that I like to do, of thinking about what are the possibilities where agentic AI could help in cyber and even beyond. Right? So over here are a couple of use cases that I've highlighted for agentic AI in cyber insurance, right? So how can agentic AI help if you are in the space of cyber insurance? So a couple of ways. So first, AI agents can function as an underwriting assistance support, right? So it can help you to screen, to summarize, to draft some of these risk write-ups and see whether it aligns with underwriting guidelines. So you don't need to manually read the document and try to piece it together and so on and so forth. So basically functioning as an underwriting assistant, right? Secondly, it could help in some level of supply chain risk screening. And here, what this means is being able to analyze the risk exposure from the vendors, right? So third-party risk is a big thing nowadays in vendors, right? And assessing whether there's any potentially downstream or upstream impact on a policyholder or insured. Thirdly, if you're a reinsurer, so this might be interesting for you, AI agents can also help you to do portfolio-wide exposure analysis. You can evaluate, for example, ABC ransomware, right? And see across your entire portfolio of clients what's the exposure and who should be then informed first and what then should they then do, right? So if you have 1,000 clients, you will face this problem. If you have 10, let's say, you can probably manually do it yourself. But the moment you have scale 100, 500 clients, you can't be assessing all their documents again, every time a new vulnerability happens, right? This is going to take you hours or days or even weeks, right? Whereas the AI agents can do a lot of that at scale really quickly across your whole portfolio. Just upload the whole portfolio of clients, 1,000 in CSV on Excel, it will be able to do that. AI agents can obviously help in post-buy early warning alerts, so it can read any form of threat intelligence sources. If you do have them, you can correlate it with your policyholder's exposure, and then you can send out alerts and advisories and say, hey, we see that you're susceptible to this CVE that just got released 2 days ago. Please patch it ASAP. AI agents can also help in claims assistance, right? So this is where pre-processing of incident reports and then matching them against the coverage terms, right? So flag whether there's potentially going to be any payout or exclusion clauses, right? So again, This is something they can do if you have an instant report, or at least a draft one that your loss adjuster is really, kind of like almost done, right? Upload the report, let the AI agent read them, match them with your actual coverage terms, and then sort of flag out to you potentially how much money you need to be paying out. And lastly, interestingly as well, you can also bundle your insurance now with an agent, right? So most of the people in the market say that if you buy insurance policy from them, they will then bundle, a risk tool, right? Some scanning tool and so on and so forth. In this case, you could actually bundle with an agent. So it's like you buy insurance from me, you actually get an AI agent on your IT team or your IT security team to help you to be able to protect your organization every day for free. Yeah. So these are some ways that we can use AI agents. Oh, I noticed there's a question. Hannah, do you want us to take it now?
Yeah, I see a hand up. Helen, I think we can take it later, but you can write the question in the chat box. Yeah. Because we don't have the unmute function, that's why. Helen, if you can, please drop your question in the chat box. Thank you. Yeah, Joel, you can carry on first.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep. So with that, I think I'm going to pass the time to Simeon. He's going to show you a live demo of how an AI agent would work, all right, in the cyber insurance context.
Okay, thanks, Joel, for the section before this. So today I will just share a bit about a sneak peek into Poros AI, our platform. As Joel mentioned, I think there are multiple use cases that we could cover. We've selected two just for a demonstration today. So what I'll do is I'll just walk you through some of the points that Joel mentioned earlier, and then also correlate that or bring that to life through a case study as well. Yeah. So what you see here is the platform, Poros AI. Basically, there are two main concepts that are critical in the platform. Very straightforward. The first concept is a concept of an agent. You can have multiple of them. Today, we have an agent that we name Eliza. Agents have specific capabilities like understanding threat reports, mapping connections, following investigative workflows, and it's able to achieve or have those capabilities through interfacing with tools, right? So some of these tools here you may not recognize, but you can think of them as cybersecurity tools that can help you to interrogate technical telemetry. The second concept here is the concept of a task, right? So you can see, let me just go there. There are many tasks that the team has put the agent to good use, and I want to demonstrate that to you today. Yeah. So to assign a task to the agent, you can do so as follows. So first of all, you can, sorry, just move this part here. Okay. So what you see here is the workspace of the agent. Basically, there's a chat interface. There are certain panels here as well that we'll see later that you can interact with the agent and go deeper beyond just a chat. For today's sort of like demonstration, what I want to do is to just use a case study or a simple prompt here on around around cyber insurance underwriting. Yeah. So we have a simplified underwriting and risk assessment task that we want to give the agent. Really here is to orientate you guys to how the agent works. Basically, the goal here is to analyze the risk exposure of a client using some level of attached insurance proposal forms and everything that Joel mentioned earlier, right? So we use this prompt and I'll just upload a simplified document just to show the behavior first, and then we'll go into the details, right? So you have a task, you give it to the agent, right? And what it will do is automatically the agent would be able to understand what it's been given, and then it would then start to create a plan and the associated steps to reach the objective. So just give the agent a couple of a few seconds here. You would be able to see then a plan coming up here. So you can see here, in order to achieve this objective that I've given it, it's broken down the into 7 steps. First, processing the documents, discovering the assets, and then so on and so forth, right? I won't go into details, but I just want to show you the behavior of the agent itself. And then as I speak, of course, the agent has started its work. It's processing the uploaded files. And within the agent workspace, then you'll be able to see various ways to interact with the agent. Yeah. So we'll let it run. But while it's running, let me just share with you guys a case study, right, that we did with an insurer around this exact use case. Yeah. So just to frame the context, right? So we have a global insurer. Their underwriting team actually approached us to see if AI agents could help them in their facultative cyber insurance underwriting, right? So unlike treaty underwriting, this is more case by case basis and more bespoke. And so the problem that they had, like Joel mentioned, was that their team of analysts had to review multiple sorts of data. These includes insurance proposal forms, internal underwriting guidelines, pricing tables, attack surface scans, etc. Right. So let me bring up some of these notional documents. These are, of course, not real, but these are representative of what you would expect in your organization as well. Yeah. So first of all, you have, for example, cyber insurance underwriting guidelines that then contain, definition of risk, of course, but cyber coverage overview in terms of first-party coverages, third-party coverages as well. You will probably have hazard levels in terms of risk assessments. So based on the various classifications of hazard levels, you will then have specific risk levels and associated actions to do, whether to write or not. And then the last piece would be around the underwriting criteria, right? So you have a sort of table with specific qualitative metrics, right, where you can then look at the risk quality, basically. Last but not least, you may have terms of coverage in terms of what you offer as standard, what is enhanced, etc., as well as what is our risk appetite. Yeah, so that's quite standard. You will also be able to receive a insurance proposal form. Here I won't go through to the details, but you would have business information, you would have technical control information, etc. And then last piece would be in terms of a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing report, where it is something that a technical assessment that a end user might be able to, end customer might have done and have prepared for the submission. Yeah. So when we ran this for Prodos AI, let me just go back into one of these, right? So we did this with a insurer, yeah, and this was the prompt that we worked together with them, yeah. And what we did was we submitted the same files here, 1, 2, 3, and then within about 15 minutes, the agent sort of like ran its task, right? So I want to use this time to also share with you some of the ways in which we interact with the agent. So the first thing is really like in terms of auditability, right? For every task or action that the agent takes in terms of its plans and reasoning, it's all logged here. So you can give it a task, go do something else, come back and see what it has done. So you can see here, similar task to what we ran earlier. It has done sort of like multiple steps in order to do this. The second is in terms of its memory. So that's the second pillar for us. You are able to then interrogate the memory of the agent. So for our day-to-day work, right, many of us, when we receive a deliverable from a colleague, it's not just the deliverable itself that's important, but how we actually got about it and the data that is seen. So what you see here is every data that is deemed relevant to the agent is actually represented as a entity here, and you can then see, in terms of reasoning, investigative value, evidence, etc., is all contained here. Together with this as well, you also can, just like how we visualize data. Sorry, just want to make sure that it's the same. This is just like how we visualize data. Some of these data sets have relationships. For example, Prodos Labs and Prodos AI, for example, right, which is our platform. These relationships are not can be best represented through sort of like a graph, which then a user can also interrogate. The last piece will ultimately be its analysis and its report. I just want to show you what that looks like from the run that we did with a client. So this is the use case that we ran with insurer, and this is the outputs of the review, right? So you can, again, it's similar to a junior underwriter in terms of its support, giving a first cut analysis. It presents the overall business profile of the organization. For us, In this case, the application form, we stated that we assess a provider specializing in cloud management, some of the key application details here in terms of its controls, the exposures, recent incidents, etc., and requested coverage, the external attack surface scan, anything that's of note, in this case, not much, reviewing the penetration tests and the security artifacts, looking at the critical findings, whether or not, or some of the remediation recommendations in the report, and then from there, comparing it with the control validation. So, for example, on paper, we declared MFA, incident response, encryption, etc. In the vulnerability assessment or the external scans, do we see any observed gaps in terms of control posture? And then the last piece would be in terms of its risk profile, right? So vis-a-vis the underwriting guidelines, what is my hazard level classification? What's the risk quality? What's the recommended terms and conditions based on the guideline? And then if there any documentation that is required further, right? And all these can then be presented as a underwriting summary that a senior underwriter can then take, review, of course, and then decide, what are the next steps, right? In terms of follow-up questions, some level of preliminary recommendations, etc., right? So this is something that, based on our interactions with the client, they would take, like Joel mentioned, at least a few hours. The AI agent ran it within about 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah. So this is something that we see as a lot of opportunity to help alleviate some of these initial work that the underwriters do, and then to allow them to also scale in terms of analyzing more risk, looking at different perspectives of the risk of not just first party, but also their vendors, their supply chains, etc. Right. So this is one example of that. The other example would be Joel mentioned earlier that we looked at most recently. I think there was a cyber attack that impacted the Heathrow Airport, right, and some of the European airports, and really it's about supply chain analysis. This is something that the agent does very well, both in terms of from an insurance perspective, looking at your client's ecosystem of vendors, as well as from the end user's perspective, their ecosystem of vendors as well. Yeah. So, for example, a simple prompt like analyzing the cyber threat landscape for cyber attacks that impact this list of vendors, and these vendors could be a list of 10, 15 key vendors, and then to be able to do some level of attack surface analysis and comparison vis-a-vis the threat landscape, right? So you can see here there are multiple vendors that have been assessed here, all within a single prompt, right? So in the interest of time, I wanted to stop here, but this is just some of the things that are possible today that we are testing with clients today. And we are also very excited about how this technology can help to improve the quality of risk that is taken on by insurers, as well as the overall risk posture of the end clients themselves. Yeah. So with that, I think I also would like to have questions, right? So I think I'll stop the presentation here and then hand over back to maybe Joel if there's any last things to close. If not, Hannah.
No, I think that's probably about it. If there's time, I think we can cover a bit of a case study. I think actually Simon already covered one case study, so I think it's good enough. We don't need to cover another one. Yeah, but we're happy to take questions now, actually, if there's any.
Okay, let me see. I saw a question that just came in. So, question by Supano says, it's interesting to see how Agentic AI can apply onto underwriting applications. So he is from the risk advisory team in his company, and he's curious to find out how this could be applied to curate risk reports for his clients, say physical terrorism or climate and sustainability pillars, etc. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks a lot for the question, Supano. So maybe just to explain a bit of how the AI agents work. So the AI agents, typically agentic technology is meant to be at the human expertise layer. As far as the data is concerned, the AI agents can be cross-trained into multiple different domains. So let's say if you're in the physical terrorism, climate sustainability, it's just around what kind of data is typically used to interrogate to make those kinds of climate sustainability terrorism decisions. Then the AI agent can be trained to be able to understand the domain context as number one. Number two, it would need to be trained to connect to those data feeds if let's say there are data points or reports or whatever it might be. And then the rest of it actually, the AI agent would then be able to autonomously. So that's the reason why we labeled the presentation to be transforming cyber risk and beyond, because when we first started out in cyber, we quickly got quite a number of requests from customers for how to use this in property, in casualty, and all that. And it didn't really cost us too much to be able to change some of that domain knowledge to teach the AI agent, but just providing them the right data sets for them to then be able to learn, and then they are able to, basically fulfill the outcome. So in this case, for risk advisory, I would imagine that you are a bit like a consulting sort of a practice, right? You want to be able to advise your clients, not just sort of like sell them insurance policies, but to advise them on a proactive basis, their risk and all of that. Yeah, that's something that AI can definitely do. Anything to add to that?
No, just one small thing. I mean, we are by no means climate or terrorism physical security experts. But similarly, I think from a physical security perspective, I think clients have geographies that they operate in, and there's also threat reports in terms of what's happening on the ground across various parts of the world. It's very similar to cyber threat intelligence. So the AI agents are able to ingest some of these unstructured data, correlate them, and then come up with an advisory at that point in time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. If there are any other questions, please keep them coming through either through the chat or Q&A function. But since we have 5 minutes left, maybe I just have one question for both. And that is, so can Protos Labs give any advice, say if an organization is not fully AI ready or not yet optimized? What is a good starting point you think? Perhaps say training, for example, just to get teams on board and also buy into this kind of hot topic that we have, which is like AI right now. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's a really good question. So I think there are multiple levels in which we can help organizations to grow, to journey into their AI journey. We know that as compared to the US, there are many companies over here that don't really have the AI strategy mapped out clearly. But that doesn't stop them from using AI. Neither does it mean that they don't believe in the benefits of AI, right? So firstly, I think the first thing that we typically try to do with customers who are like that would be able to map out certain very pointed, targeted use cases. So for example, is there a certain business problem that you're trying to solve? Maybe just one problem that you're trying to solve, right? For example, maybe underwriting operations or like in climate, or in property or whatever it might be. And then what is the pain there, right? Is it that you're too slow or, you can't make sense of too much data? Or is it inaccuracies and so on and so forth? And then we will start off with that as a bit of like proof of concept, right? Just to show that the AI agents can really deliver the outcomes that you are looking for before we begin to expand more use cases or more data sets. The second thing that we do also to help is obviously we are able to do things like this. So like these webinars, trainings for more of the senior management stakeholders to be able to give them a primer on what agentic AI technology is all about, and where we see industry trends moving, especially, I didn't cover this in the presentation, but there are quite a number of trends around how insurance companies in the West have, received something like 90% improvement in productivity for claims, using AI agents and all that. So just to paint a picture of where like the more mature markets are moving towards, and to help them to be able to see that this is something that it sounds scary, but it doesn't need to be, as long as you have someone to sort of like guide you along. The last is, of course, there's an option that we can also provide some of our products as a service. So there are customers, especially in the enterprise CISOs, when we talk to them that they don't, they believe in the benefits of AI, but they don't want to manage the AI infrastructure in-house, right? So they say that's too cumbersome, get approval or whatever. How about we work with you? You use the AI to deliver us the same outcome, but maybe you charge us less, because you're faster and you're cheaper, whatever it might be. So they might say, okay, let's say if I have a proposal form that comes in, I need to do this underwriting assessment. I mean, this is anecdotal. Maybe you do the assessment for me and I ask you to do it and then you send me the report, right? And for every one of them, I pay you, for example. So that's what we call like AI as a service, that you don't need to manage the in-house infrastructure, but you can still reap the benefits of the technology.
Pretty cool. Simeon, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, in our engagements with clients, we've worked with large ones, of course, but also very small, maybe 1 or 2 people in the team. And you'll be surprised, actually, that the teams, small teams, are able to also pick up the AI interactions with the AI quite quickly as well, and also to be able to reap the benefits from the get-go. So, for example, things like the underwriting outfit may not have the capability or the resource to do threat landscape analysis periodically, right? So the AI agent does that automatically for them, right? So that's one use case. Another could be they may not have risk scans, right? So a basic risk scan that the AI agent does is better than what they already have. So we see a lot of opportunities for companies big and small alike to be able to interrogate and also to gain the benefits from AI agents. And I think it also sort of level the playing field a bit better, right? Because now the expertise can also be assessed, right, by even smaller players as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I think we are right on time with just a minute left. So I'd just like to take this time really once again to thank both Joel and Simeon for sharing with us all the insights and expertise and what amazing things I think Protos Labs are really on the way and what they can do, and also the developments that are really shaping our insurance industry. So I think today's session was really fruitful. And for everyone else that are keen to receive their CPD hours, don't forget to do the feedback form that's already in the chat. Fill that up, and then I will be sending around the certifications later on. But until then, we've come to the end of the program for our September educational series. So thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you Protos Labs for your time and for joining, and then we'll see you on the next one. Yep. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.